up, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of On a Couch Talking Sports. As always, I'm Robbie, joined, as always, by Kyle. Kyle, how are you tonight, buddy?
I'm doing great, Robbie. I am having this wonderful May 4th. May the 4th be with you. Wait,
Yes.
is this a Star Wars shirt? Yes, it is a Star Wars shirt. There we go. Yeah, I'm just living in the Star Wars dream. No. Yeah.
You know what? The funny thing is, I forgot for a moment what day it was, and then, so happy Star Wars Day, and May the 4th be with you. So for tonight's episode, we wanted to sort of continue our theme that we've been doing of sort of reminiscing, sort of discussing past teams of all levels and stuff like that. Sort of doing some retrospectives of said teams. And tonight, we're actually going to sort of make it a bit more personal for the two of us. We're going to sort of be discussing back to our high school days, all the way back to the year 2005, 15 years ago, if you can believe it. And we're going to be discussing the 2005 Wellesley High School football team that we both experienced fondly through different perspectives. Myself as a fan watching the team from the stands, and Kyle as a player on that 2005 team, which went 8-3, and we'll get into their season sort of in general in a moment. But the first thing I wanted to ask you, Kyle, to start off with is, going into that season, it was your first season on the varsity team as a player. So just sort of, before we get into the season, like the regular season in general, sort of take us through, from your perspective, sort of your expectations entering that season, and also just what it was like once you started to, like, your first, preseason and all that, as a member of the team, just sort of what it was like for you going into that season from a player's perspective.
Well, so I had only done one actual season of football before that. So I kind of had a bit of an idea, or at least I kind of thought I did for certain things. And after being on the freshman team, I hadn't done 8th grade football. I basically skipped that season. But after being on the freshman team, that's the year before, it was kind of a nice, like, intro to football, and you kind of got an idea of, like, where you were going to practice. We basically had the same practice field as the varsity team when we were on the freshman team. So, and obviously we had already done, our road games and our home games. So, I had kind of an idea of based on that alone. But going into the season, even some of the drills and stuff kind of carried over and luckily even some of the the coaching staff, if I remember correctly, was different, but it was also kind of helpful freshman year having known a few of the coaches beforehand, even just through gym class. I remember Matt Coach Wassel, I remember, who was there at the time, was my gym teacher. He was the fitness instructor. So
same here, yeah.
Yeah, I think we may have even been in the same class, weren't we?
I think so. We may have been for at least one of those terms. I remember freshman year. I think you're right. I think we were for at least part of it.
Yeah. So it was kind of nice to already have. Oh, and also the throwing coach, Coach Ruben, I remember, who was the coach at the time as well. I had known him through track, so it was kind of a nice, easy transition in that regard because he was the line coach.
He was my guidance counselor too, so I knew Coach Ruben quite well as well, even though I didn't play on the team. Yeah, because for folks who don't know, Kyle and I actually played on the team together freshman year, and then I stopped playing football, and he kept right on going all the way through all 4 years. So no, I definitely knew Coach Ruben well, and some of the, like I said, Wassel and those guys as well. So I definitely had those relationships with the coaching staff, even though I didn't continue after that first year. But good. Anyway, continue.
No, that's okay. I mean, and you also did 8th grade, didn't you?
Yes. Yeah, but 8th grade is interesting because we did have we did have one same coach from 8th grade to freshman year, Coach Corda, but then the other two coaches were just like the 8th grade coaches, so we didn't see them or they didn't coach us freshman year as well, so it's kind of a little bit different in that regard. But it definitely there was still some familiarity because with Coach Corda freshman year, and then so all that. So yeah.
Oh, and actually, speaking of him, I think he was also at our varsity games. He never really was at practice because he was, obviously he was one of the freshman coaches. But he would, I remember, follow us at the games. Like he would actually be at our home games sometimes. And I'm trying to remember if that was junior varsity or if that was varsity. No, I think it was just varsity. Yeah. He'd be at
wait, who are you talking about again?
About Corda?
He was the freshman coach. He was our freshman line coach.
But I thought I remembered him going to some of those games too. I thought he went
You mean the varsity games?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he usually would be on the sideline for the varsity games as well. Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah. So that was kind of cool seeing him there. So I was like, hey, what's up, dude? So yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Anyway, just sort of take us through, like I said, what was that because preseason freshman year, preseason sophomore year was definitely a lot different. So just sort of take us through what that was like for you from a player's perspective.
It was a huge kick in the nuts, let me tell you. It was so the difference between preseason freshman year and preseason sophomore year was a major one. So first of all, when you and I were on the freshman team, I'd say I think we started 3 days before school started.
Yeah.
It was
the same week. Yeah, we school started on Wednesday and we started practice on Monday.
Oh yeah, there you go. So okay, so there you go. So you had like 2.5 days of just kind of beginning to get a feel for how the team was and everything, and they'd already start the drills. But I just remember it being a lot more chill, a lot more relaxed. Like you kind of went in and you kind of met everyone. Sophomore year, oh my God. Let me tell you, for those of you who have played football from sophomore to anytime between or anytime within that period, between sophomore and senior year of high school, geez, you are in for a hell of a ride, man. Because so we had to do 2-a-days. For those of you who don't know what 2-a-days are, they're basically, it's like you're going to practice, but basically like with work hours. You're like within you're going to practice literally the entire day. So you go at 8 a.m. You got around 6, and they work you to the bone. They oh my God, it was so different. I remember the first day, I was so out of breath. I could barely even eat my dinner that night just because I was so tired and just so exhausted. Oh man,
I can imagine. Yeah, it sounds just the thought of it sounds torturous.
Oh yeah. Oh you better believe it. It was just they really obviously we had breaks and we ate lunch. We brought our lunch and we'd be drinking from the big giant water cooler and everything. But there were just times where they got really intense with the workouts, like the crab walk. I remember the 2-minute drills and everything. Those were a lot. Oh my God, what a workout! But I'll tell you, it really got me in shape for the season, and it got me prepared for just the whole grandness, I think, of the season. So
yeah. And then sort of looking into the regular season, it's interesting because like I said, I was sort of watching games from a fan's perspective, and you were playing. And the first thing I wanted to ask you about was the night game that year, because obviously the night games that just started our freshman year, and then we obviously, watched that first night game from the stands. But obviously sophomore year, you were on the field for it. And I think we played Milton, if I remember that year, and we won pretty handily, again, if I remember correctly. So just sort of take us through what it was like for you, the sort of the one night game year, the first time getting to actually like be on the field for a Friday night game. What it was like for you as a player to sort of go through that.
It was a great experience. It was really awesome. I was kind of awestruck, I was just like, whoa, man, like, just kind of being on the sidelines. I don't think I had, well, because when you're a sophomore, you really don't play as much in the varsity team. Like you kind of get you get more of your time in the JV, so in the junior varsity games. But just the whole experience of going to the game, being in the sidelines, and this was I think our second game under the light, our second time we did under the lights. Is that right?
Yeah, because freshman year is when they started it, and then obviously sophomore year, yeah.
And it was just such a big contrast to the year before, because I don't know if you remember, I was the pep band. So
That's right.
Yeah, like that's how I experienced the game. My very first Friday Night Lights game was with the band, playing all those epic march songs and everything. And it was cool. I mean that was a great experience alone. I'll have to talk some more about that later on, but or maybe on another episode. But it was just such a big contrast. You go from, you're like you said, the stands, and then you're just on the field. You're just experiencing everything going on. So it was really cool, very eye opening, actually.
Definitely, and for me as a fan, it was really cool as well. I mean, all those, Friday night games, all 4 years, were just so much fun to watch. And I mean, obviously, the fact that we won, was a big plus as well. And I do remember, going to that game and just, all the excitement and, you just remember sort of bits and pieces of it, like I remember some of the celebrating some of the touchdowns and just, being up with all the other students and stuff like that. And it was just a really cool time. And I know that season, you guys started out actually like really well. I think you were like 5 or 6-0, something like that. And I remember you guys played Natick, and like, Natick was undefeated. You guys were undefeated in Natick. It was like a really close game to down the wire, and Natick unfortunately kind of came away with the victory there at the end. But just talk about like a game like that, again, being able to be involved in it as a player, such a big game like that. What it was like for you from a player's perspective, that Natick game that year.
Well, are you talking about specifically the Natick one?
Yeah.
It was it was pretty heartbreaking, because you're right, we were on a huge winning streak, and by that point we were a tight team. I gotta say, honestly, I think that group of players was probably my favorite group that I was with all 4 years of football. I really enjoyed that year. I think we had a real camaraderie with everyone, and when we lost, everyone really felt that. It was just it was a heartbreaking loss, but at the end of the day, it was, we kept doing our best. I thought that, yeah, we just really had we just had a really, really good run that season. Definitely the best run, I think, out of my 4 years of football that I played. Yeah. That was definitely the strongest, I think, season that at least I've been through. And it's interesting, because when you lose a game, it kind of sets the tone of practice, on Monday. And I know a lot of times you come in, you start off being disappointed, but at the end of the day, you have to tell yourself, and this is especially for people who are playing football now, or basically any sport, you got to kind of use Monday as like your reset day. You know, you win, you lost, doesn't matter either way. At that point, just it's the beginning of the week, and you gotta try your best. You just kind of look at it like, okay, that game was done, so we're gonna start fresh, we're gonna start clean, we'll do the best we can this week. So it's one of those things where, yeah, as disappointing as losing a game like that is, you just gotta kind of just accept it and then just move on. Just like Bill Belichick says, on to the next one, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely true. And like you were saying, I mean, that was definitely the most successful season. I mean, 8-3, I think was the best record of our 4 years. Because I know as you were talking, I was sort of thinking back. Because freshman year, varsity went 6-5, then 8-3 sophomore year. Then I think we went like 7-4 or something like that junior year, and then senior year we was a tough year. I think we went 4-7. Which was not good, but I mean, it was just an exciting year. Before I sort of jump ahead a few games, there was one thing I wanted to ask you about that I've that I was curious about. I kind of know somewhat just from sort of outside observing and also freshman year, but that senior class, the '05 season, was quite the talented group. I remember there were quite a few talented guys on the team, and one that really stands out, and you're going to know where I'm going with this in just a second, was Thomas Claiborne, who ended up going to play at BC. Obviously, my favorite college football team, so I got to follow him. Watch him when he played there, and then I think he went on to like playing the XFL or something like that, and all that fun stuff. And obviously, you had sort of the pleasure of being able to be sort of in the same position group as him. You both being linemen. So I was just curious, what was it like? First of all, to sort of learn and watch a guy like him sort of in practice and in games, and then also just that senior group in general from that year, because like I said, they were, you look at like, Andrew Elfman, Darrell Warren, Danny Haluska, a lot of those guys, just very, very talented players. So just what was it like, watching and sort of learning from Thomas, and like I said, the senior group, I should say, as a whole that year?
So I will start off with this, that not only were they incredible players, they were fantastic human beings. They were some of the best teammates I think I've had, just out of all the 4 years of football. And they were really stand-up guys. Because you hear stories about like, especially like the senior class always trying to haze like the underclassmen and everything, but you never kind of, and a lot of times I feel like senior classes, like, they tend to be kind of, oh, we're the best, we're the oldest now, so they kind of reach the top. So they're just kind of picking on the smaller ones. Whereas these guys, you never felt that. These guys were just incredibly nice. Their goal was never to harass or bother anyone. They really brought the team together. I thought I have the utmost respect for all of them, and it's just like I feel like they were just like they were just like just great role models, great teammates, great captains. And they always gave us like these incredible speeches. I know Thomas was really really into it, and he I remember like even he would get like so emotional during some of the games, and it's understandable. Like we really and you really felt the emotion, and I gotta say, during practice, I remember sometimes they'd pair Thomas and I up, and I'd be scared. I was a skinny guy. I wasn't a very big guy, so I was tall, but I was easy to knock down. So I didn't have a lot of bones. So
yeah, Thomas could be. I mean, he was such a nice guy, but he could definitely be intimidating. I remember I'll tell this story quickly. I think you know the story because I've told it many, many times. Freshman year, after practice one day, I'm like standing talking to I don't know somebody over by the entrance to the locker room, and here comes Thomas, sort of walking towards me. I'm like almost hunkering down in fear because here's this big, like guy coming towards like straight for me. Turns out he just wanted to tap the pride sign that was on, that was at the entrance to the locker room. He's like, don't worry about it, I'm not going to hurt you. I was like, hello, Thomas. But yeah, so that was kind of funny. But yeah, he was, like you said, that whole group, just watching, them from, again, a fan's perspective. I mean, they were so talented, just really demonstrated such good leadership, and it was really fun to watch. Like I said, I think I was trying to think back to how many games I went to that season. I know I went to the season opener in Brookline, which was a lot of fun, over at Northeastern, which was kind of cool. I went to the night game. I went to the Natick game. I went to the Walpole game at home. And then I went to Thanksgiving, obviously. I think that was it for the games that I went to. But still, I mean, it was, like I said, it was just, it's always so much fun to be at the games, and, to whether you're in elementary school, middle school, high school, post-high school, it doesn't matter. To be able to go to those games and watch your hometown team play is really a cool experience, and that year especially. And so I want to jump ahead, if I could, Kyle, to the Thanksgiving game that year, because I got to be honest with you, that Thanksgiving game, out of the 4 years of high school, I think that was my favorite game, honestly, in terms of the Thanksgiving games our 4 years. I mean, our senior year game was great, even though we lost, and freshman and junior were exciting as well. But that sophomore year game was just so intense, like right down the wire. Like literally, I remember we scored to win the game with like a minute left or something like that, and like just it was very high intensity, very high emotion. I mean, that was just from a fan's perspective, watching it from up in the stands. So, like I said, I wanted to get your sort of your thoughts on that game twofold. First of all, actually, you know what? I'm going to sort of start with the part A here, and then we'll get into part B, which is sort of the game in general. Part A is, I know literally right before that game was the first time that they brought out the red jerseys. Yeah, and so before I get into the game in general, what was it like for you being a player and being in that locker room when they like unveiled to you guys you're going to be playing in those red jerseys?
Oh, I mean, at that point, I felt like I was in a movie. I felt like I was in like a replacement or something like that. It was wild. I was like, what the? It was pretty unreal. It was the jerseys looked fantastic. I remember I was blown away. I was like, whoa, I mean, don't get me wrong, the regular game and practice jerseys were cool enough, but like seeing those like very classy red jerseys, I was like, oh, are we upgrading to like? I felt like I was upgrading the car from like a Ford to a Jaguar. I was like, whoa, okay. It was really cool. It was a really great experience. It was a great way to kind of pump us up, and basically it kind of set the tone for the game and really led us to like a movie style victory at that point. So
yeah, like I said, I mean, what was I gonna say? But yeah, just the game in general that year. I mean, like I said, just like down to the wire, thrilling finish, just a typical, really typical Wellesley Needham, just Thanksgiving thriller. So just talk about, just that game from, again, a player's perspective, and just going through as a player, all your first Thanksgiving game on like the varsity team. Obviously, we had both dressed actually for the Thanksgiving game the previous year, but just
yes, that's right.
But the first Thanksgiving game as a player at home, and just the way that game went down. Just talk about it. Just like I said, just talk about it from a player's perspective.
Oh yeah, it was amazing. It was incredible. It was like you said, it was the first game to experience at home, and you already kind of got a bit of a taste of that experience. I mean, like you said, like when we were on the sidelines, when we were on the freshman team, when we went to Needham, but it's just such a different kind of feel and atmosphere when you experience it on the home turf.
Right.
And what I remember from that game was that it had snowed.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember that too. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like I remember that there was still actually a decent amount of snow on the ground, and this was back. Now, give you guys a quick history lesson. Our field had not been a turf field, so
No.
throughout at least our years of football, we played on the just straight up grass and dirt field. That's how it was. We were the classic, like, yeah.
Yeah, because they didn't even turf the field until 2016. So this was
Oh, yeah.
a good decade before, before they did that. So it was grass, and which basically meant like if it rained or snowed, like that stuff stayed around. Like just watching and participating in like some of those mud bowls on that field some years. I mean, it was something else.
Yeah, it was wild. It was I think and then, we had excuse me. Sorry, my throat's a little rusty there. So, and this is kind of going back to what our head coach at the time, Coach Tracy. Now he actually had this incredible speech about adversity, and that's something that always stuck with me. Even though I had not played football after high school, I always kind of just remembered his speech, and I remember throughout the year, even right before the game that was played, he would talk to us about adversity, and I feel like that really helped us get through all the other what a lot of people could I guess you could call them I'm trying to think, like obstacles, I guess, if you will. Like, yeah, it maybe it's raining, maybe there's snow on the ground, so yeah, it's going to make things rougher for you, but either way you play, that's the whole point of adversity. You just got to play through the obstacles, just get through it, do your best, and I feel like that's what we did. It was just, like you said, it was a very close game, and I remember very vividly, actually, and this is probably one of my reasons why it's probably my favorite Thanksgiving game, just maybe of all time, just being there, experiencing it. I just remember running down that field, and the sun had just popped up right when that last touchdown was made, and it was just really, it was like literally, like I said, it was a scene from a movie. I felt like I was right in the middle of a football movie, just when we were doing that game. So it was it was pretty good. It was pretty magical, So yeah.
Yeah, it was. No, you're right. It was fantastic. I mean, just watching that game as a fan, I mean, it was just so exciting, so intense. I know there was a little bit of a skirmish just before halftime between a couple of the players, and it was, things just got very intense. And yeah, like I said, it was definitely my favorite game. Definitely my favorite Thanksgiving game, I should say, of high school, for sure. And it was just a lot of fun. So before we wrap up, the last question I kind of wanted to ask you, again, it's kind of like a two-parter. Is sort of, first off, just any other general sort of thoughts and memories you have from that season. But second of all, I know obviously being a sophomore, you were also heavily involved on the JV team that year as well. And so just sort of talk about, again, just any general memories from that season, but also what it was like, being on the JV team and participating in those games during that season as well.
So I would say the JV team was probably the most fun I've had throughout the whole season. I mean, practice was great, and hanging out with the seniors was awesome. But I thought we really had a fantastic JV group that year. And Coach Rubin was actually the one who was leading the JV. He was essentially the head JV coach.
Right.
So it was great because I had known him because he was a throwing coach in track. So I did throwing all 4 years. So after being with him in the track team, and also having him be the line coach, it was just fun, kind of like when we went out, and I feel like we just had all these like jokes and everything that we shared, and it was just really all these like kind of in jokes and everything, and I don't know, it was just really cool. It was a great way to spend a Saturday morning, because that's when a lot of our games were. Sometimes they were, I think. I want to say, actually, no, Monday nights. I think we even had some games on like Monday. It was just kind of random. So either we'd have it on Mondays or Saturdays, and I feel like that was just a great opportunity to get on the field. And when I was on the JV team, I was a defensive tackle, and I just remember loving playing that position. It was a lot of fun. It's kind of like one of those things where it's kind of a fun way to like to get your aggression out, to just to experience like a full blown football game, that because like normally you wouldn't experience on the varsity, because usually they had their kind of starting lineup, and usually we were on the sidelines, so it was kind of nice having that JV experience where we got kind of more play time in the game. So it was just really cool. It was great. I just had such a fun time. I remember, I think one of the JV games. This is a really random story, where like I'm talking about like in jokes and stuff. And I think one time when we were going back to the bus, there was something on the ground. It looked like clam chowder or something like that. So I remember a bunch of the guys were daring one of the other guys to eat it, and the guy just ate it. So
Oh my God!
We're like, what?
Wow.
It's just stuff like that. It's just typical high school boy stuff. Like,
yeah.
But it was those kind of little things, like those memories where we just had such a great time. We'd laugh, and just having Coach Ruben, like I said, be the head JV coach. It really just made it that much more fun. So I got to give hats off to, big shout out to Coach Ruben. Big shout out to the JV team, and especially to the seniors. Just I feel like they really inspired us to be not only better players, but better people. So
nice. So, any other general thoughts about that year? Just anything else you wanna share?
Oh, one time I did have a practice victory. One time I did pancake Thomas.
Wow, that is a victory.
It was the most random thing, because every other time he would knock me down, like no joke, like he was like a wall. Like every time we do like our lineman practice and everything, like I'd bump into him, I'd be like flying like 100 feet like to the other direction. But in this case, we were doing I think we were doing like the shoots. I think that's what you call them. And I remember I had just like I was just like, I'm just gonna power through this drill and everything. And he was actually the guy waiting on the other side, and because they always had to put guys at the end to kind of like, because it's like a blocking drill. So one person would be at the end of the shoots, while the other person would go through. It's like a little tunnel. So I was the person going through, and Thomas was on the other side. And I just remember I had gone so fast. I was going, and then I just like pancaked him. I was like, what? Is this the Matrix? So.
Wow. Good for you. I mean, that's something to write home about. That's for sure. Yeah.
But I also want to give a big shout out to, Thomas. I had such a great season with him. And I'm really happy to hear that he was coaching 8th grade, right? For a while?
He was, yeah, he came back and was coach on the 8th grade. Now I think I heard he's coaching at another school now or something like that. But I know he seems to be doing well these days, which is good, which is always good to hear. Shout out Thomas Claiborne. Yeah, so obviously another, just a great sort of season to reminisce about, especially since we were both sort of personally involved in it, from different perspectives. So I now want to kind of start to wrap up the show, and want to throw it to Kyle again here to lead things off for another edition of the Couch Fans' favorite segment, the Sue's Review. So, Kyle, what have
Yeah.
you got for us this week?
Okay, so this week, in honor of May the 4th, May the 4th be
Not
with
surprised.
I wanted to go over a fantastic trilogy of Star Wars games I have right here. So these are the Super Nintendo versions of Star Wars, of the original trilogy Star Wars movies. Because at that time, the prequels and the new movies haven't come out yet. So I really wanted to talk about these games because they were some of my favorite games growing up, especially this one, especially Return of the Jedi. So these are basically side scrollers. So they're 2D side scrollers. You move your character, left and right, and you can choose. And the cool thing is that you get to be all the different characters from the movies. You get to be Luke most of the time, but you can also choose to be Leia and Han and Chewie, which is fantastic. And also you can be an Ewok in this one. Yeah, you can choose to be a little Ewok with a little bow and arrow. It's pretty cool. These games they're fantastic. Not only because of they great side scrollers, but they also had a lot of variety to them. They had segments where you could fly ships, you could fly in space, you could fly through Cloud City and all the really famous Star Wars spots and everything for the movie. And they also had some rail shooting segments where you can go on a laser gun turret from the Millennium Falcon and shoot down TIE fighters that way. So it really switched the gameplay really switched up a lot. So it wasn't just side scrolling. It really kind of tried different styles of gaming, and they use this cool function called Mode 7 for the flight levels in these ones. It's this kind of mode. It's this way in Super Nintendo games where, because in Super Nintendo you didn't really get a lot of 3D games, so they made the games kind of like an earlier version of 3D. So it's like you were flying the ships in like an open plane, which is kind of cool. But I will say this about these games: these games are hard. These games will test your gaming skill to the max. Like, don't expect these to be easy rides. These two are the hardest ones. The first two, Star Wars Empire Strikes Back. Luckily, they did tone the difficulty down a bit in Return of the Jedi. There are 3 difficulty modes, but even easy mode in these 2 games, it's hard. They're tough games. You're gonna die a lot. So making maybe there's a false jump or like maybe there's just too many enemies on screen. That's the other thing too. There's a lot of respawning enemies when you go through the side-scrolling levels. But I would say if there was a place to start, if there's a game to start with, especially if you're a newbie to the series, I would start with Return of the Jedi, just because it's a little easier than the first 2 games. But either way, definitely play the games. I think any way you can. They're really only for Super Nintendo, but I think you can also download the first game here on the PlayStation Network for like PS4. So you can get an HD version. And the other thing is that these games don't have a save feature. This game you have to defeat in one run. So yeah. Whereas these 2 games at least have passwords. So once you defeat a level, you can enter a password.
Nice.
So, yeah, at least you don't have to worry about going all the way back to the beginning, like in
that would suck. That would really suck.
So yeah, no, those are just a little chat about Star Wars games. So definitely, if you guys have a Super Nintendo that's collecting dust, definitely check these games out. So yeah.
There you go. Well, thank you, Kyle. And again, may the 4th be with you. So now we're going to move on to my final thought, which is that beginning tonight, or technically tomorrow morning, since it's at 1 a.m. local time, ESPN is actually going to be broadcasting live opening day of the Korean Baseball League. Yes, the Korean Baseball League is beginning its season finally tomorrow morning, technically. And ESPN came to a deal with them to broadcast the games here in the States, since we have no live sports of our own going on right now. And so I just, obviously I'm going to be recording this game because, I'm not staying up till 1 o'clock in the morning or anything. But I just think it's really exciting, the fact that finally we get some actual live baseball on our television. Seeing that there's no MLB right now or no live sports around here, period. So I think it's just, exciting to see. And, obviously we hope that, MLB comes back as soon as possible in all sports. But, right now I'll sort of take what I can get at this point. And so to be able to, at least watch that, I guess they're going to be showing more games during the week as well. But again, they're all kind of early morning games because obviously the time difference between here and South Korea. But still, it's just kind of nice to see some live baseball and after these last couple of months. So I'm looking forward to it. And that's sort of just what I wanted to touch on for my final thought. Nothing too long-winded there, but live baseball is back, even if it's in another country, which is something. So that's going to wrap it up for this week's edition of On a Couch Talking Sports. As always, everybody, stay safe, stay healthy out there, and until next time, I'm Robbie. That's Kyle, and again, we'll see you next time here on a Couch Talking Sports. Bye, everybody.